joining today. I actually wanted to be in the room with all of you because I do think in this time that we're apart, it's so much better to still get together in certain circumstances. But I'm a little bit under the weather, so I do not want to expose you all to my googlies in this current pandemic world. But what I really want to discuss today is, what does CX strategy look in an omni-channel world post the COVID future? And I think that is such a loaded topic into itself, because we've all kind of gotten on this journey of this global pandemic that we didn't see coming. And I think it changed the world much more than we expected at the start of lockdown last year. And what does this truly mean for us, and what truly happened, and what is the future going to hold? So it's great that I can start just sharing some of my thoughts, things that I've been thinking about and seeing across the world, and what does that mean for all of us. So today I'm going to discuss just truly it's digital, how it impacts some functions and how it leads to experiences, platforms, and ultimately business-wide transformation. As we know, like digital maturity and transformation is still purely a thing. So if just getting into the first section, I truly think in a digital world, people are still people, but what does that truly mean in terms of how we operate? But if we take a step back and we look at the closest we can get to some great South African research done by Arthur Goldstock, and he did this in late 2018 to kind of predict what is online sales going to look like in 2020. He clearly didn't know kind of where the world was going to go in terms of the pandemic at the time. But it was a measly figure that he predicted that will reach about just over 2% of all sales in South Africa would be online. And at that time, it was 1.4% of total retail sales was online. As we can imagine, this is predominantly things like air flight tickets and travel that was booked online, but it's still total sales in South Africa, 1.4% was online in 2018. His prediction was kind of, it was going to grow 20% year on year, and we were going to end up at about 2%. But just knowing everything we know now, we can imagine that changed dramatically, and the growth we've seen been exponential. But to just revisit that look in 2018 for the forecast that was made, he flagged already at that point there's a lack of investment. Companies are taking the profits from online sales and to the bottom line, and not necessarily putting it into their online store, online initiatives for the future. And the 4 success factors he identified in that report was that truly for online consumer success, it's you have to go look at customer service. As we all know, customer will forever be king. Have a wide range of products. I'm not necessarily going to go buy my dishwashing tablets on a dedicated website for dishwashing tablets. You have to be kind of in that basket consideration where Take A Lot, I think, in South Africa really offers us that choice and variety, online user experience, as well as just general customer relationship management. How do we truly give phenomenal service beyond just a purchase? And I think that's particularly true in industries like automotive and insurance, where there is a long-term element to post-purchase servicing that we need to get right. Now heading into a little bit of global research, where that was done late last year. And this was really about then, what does this mean for global digital adoption, and what are digital leaders saying? What did 2020 and the pandemic really do to our growth rates? And that research that was done by Zendesk found at that point in time, like 50% of professionals believe digital adoption has been accelerated by 1 to 3 years. Another 25% even said it's been accelerated by 4 to 7 years. But in total, 75% of all respondents says the timelines has been moved up. The world has gone digital in a much quicker way than we expected. And no longer is it kind of, I think we've got this beautiful runway that was even predicted in the preceding research slide that I've shown, that we can truly wait, we've got some time, we can sort this out. I mean, like hard lockdown, And that period, how do you manage it? And how do you all of a sudden service clients with where they're at? And all of a sudden you also have a distributed team. And I think it really just, the key point for me here is the acceleration was rapid. And it truly is invest now or play catch up later. So much more than that research shown in 2018, the need is now. But I think this is also a fact we've all been recognizing for the last year. And what's then actually this benefit of rather thinking of integrated consumer experience and really building a customer experience end to end, and not necessarily just taking some real world brick and mortar elements separate, looking at it like completely separate from your online space? And how do you actually then get that nice crossover that it really is one experience that you get in store and online? And this research also then went further to say 65% of customers wants to buy from companies that got easy and quick transactions online. I can imagine some of you started a lot of buying groceries online during the pandemic last year. Just think about your own shift in terms of behavior, which apps you've kind of gravitated to for ease of use, and really how that really impacted you in South Africa. But globally, kind of, we all know Amazon is like always up for discussion and regarded as probably the company providing the most phenomenal customer service. But their business model is also quite interesting. If you go think about, yes, they've gone and built a business around the consumer for the long term, yet they haven't like turned a profit yet. They've truly just been a company that there has been heavily investment in, and it's a great big business. But from actually input, really they're building a business for the future. And what was quite interesting there, the last thing that customers said is kind of 50% an integrated journey for them is so much more important now in a world post-COVID. And we truly are going to see they expect companies to act more and more like humans, like being close to their best friends, talking to them on that kind of level. And that is a fascinating space. And I can just see this rapid adoption of this, that we'll see some great case studies coming alive worldwide, but hopefully also in South Africa over the next year or two. Moving along, what all of this kind of then says to me is that that old adage that digital is no longer a function within the business, but a part of the whole business, is so much more true today than it's ever been. And a lot of businesses haven't yet fully embraced this digital maturity business. I can say in my current position in kind of the alcoholic consumer product goods space, it's definitely something that is being adopted on a global multinational level at this point in time, but they're still grappling with how to integrate this into current business functions. And what tends to happen is you kind of get this specialist function alongside all the functions we've known as business people: marketing, sales, operations, HR, IT, and all of that, where digital is a lot of time then just being added on as either a subset of IT or quick independent department on its own. But if you actually truly think about it, digital is part of everything. I don't believe in a world where you can say, I'm a digital marketing manager and I have a marketing manager. It's the same thing. The objectives is the same. At the end of the day, it's to create that need still for a consumer to purchase your product. And the same thing in sales. If I sell a product online or in store, it's still a sale. And it's really about breaking that chain of trying to isolate the channels and rather trying to start seeing it as an integrated experience where it needs to be consistent in online and in store. And if your business today, you want to go track kind of where you are in that journey, about 2 years ago, Google launched a phenomenal benchmark tool. And the link is there in the presentation, and I'll share pieces of the presentation post with Jeremiah and the organizers to share with yourself. But I would just take the time and actually go answer that survey. And they give some great recommendations of kind of where to start your own journey of how do you align digital maturity and consumer experience really to embrace this new world we live in. If we go a little bit further into the field of sales, it's quite interesting how this has a knock-on effect in other parts of the business. But firstly, I'm going to talk a lot in this presentation about retail, but if there's any questions around other kind of industry verticals that people have, like insurance, automotive, etc., please feel free to pop it in the chat and we can definitely discuss it, and also how these principles are still truly applicable to different industries. But what was quite interesting, if you think about merchandising, we all know visual in-store merchandising, the merchandisers walking around, dressing the dummy dolls and making sure the clothes and the outfits are matched perfectly to make sure people kind of truly buy into that look and that lifestyle and that element of, I'm going to be such a fashionista. But if you take this into an online world, how do you need to merchandise in a digital world to get that same feeling with the client, that they're going to go like, I'm going to be the best fashionista out there if I buy this outfit you're showing to me on this product page? And what was quite interesting is that this research from FreeKit, which is a global company that kind of created some phenomenal software on how to actually create merchandising images for online, what they found is that you get, if you really truly go and fix your merchandising in the fashion space online, you end up with 40% less returns because your visuals truly showed your product in a correct manner. But if you go think about this to illustrate the example of earlier, like, this is not new. It's just about doing it right in a digital context that is truly new to the world. And that is truly enhancing that consumer experience touch point. And what was quite interesting, this is an American company, but they've also found that 82% of their shoppers believe like you have to reduce returns because of the logistics impact it's got on the environment. Because you actually don't want to get, like I order quite a lot from Superbalist and Zando and Zara, but if you get clothes and it's like not what you expected, you're almost like a little bit turned off. But now it's like also not just the personal logistics of sending it back, but also actually that impact the transportation have with like actually sending it through the courier back. And consumers are becoming much more conscious about eco practices. And then that actually feeds back into marketing. And how do you make sure you provide a phenomenal customer experience from a brand positioning perspective, where you can go position yourself as an eco-friendly company, right back to merchandising to returns. And what I just love about this example, it shows how everything interplays. So merchandising is no longer a brick and mortar store function. It's a basic requirement for an online store. But what gets me about this, it's so simple. It's always been a requirement for a physical brick and mortar store. So the more things changes, the more they stay the same, it seems. Oh, I went a little bit trigger happy there. And then what this company does is it's kind of create this opportunity to easily, with the help of an app, develop various images for your online merchandising. And this is just a quick example of how they did the personalization of a shirt. But also just imagine the experience of being able to quickly customize the shirt to 100% what you want. And what is great about this is they've given great guidelines in the terms of make sure you have 8 different product images, really go into 3D customization if possible, and really support, they even support augmented reality. So I think they're quite a new company called FreeKit, but I think their service is much needed in a time where we want to, in a quick, simple manner, be able to effectively merchandise our online stores when people are quite scared to visit a physical retailer. Moving along then into kind of the business function of marketing, what then if you go and you really looked at sales elements where online sales and store sales are the same thing at the end of the day, you've kind of looked at generalizing merchandising functions, operations, and the interplay of it. But what does all of this truly mean for marketing in terms of what COVID brought to the consumer experience? So I think today more than ever, it is this notion of we need to be able to market to everyone, speaking to people on an individualized, personalized basis. So why do we need data-driven marketing? Because without direct channels, we can truly only kind of what I kind of describe as market in a way that you call pay as you go. If you think of how you buy TV and traditional media in the sense of magazine placements and even some digital content marketing, it's pay as you go. You can only reach that customer if you pay the media owner. But it's quite interesting if you go into a data-driven world where you collect data, you enrich data, and you start getting to know someone one-on-one, like you would with your good friends, and you would actually refer back to old conversations in the future, you start to develop this one-on-one data-driven marketing relationship, where now you can all of a sudden speak to someone like they're your friend, and you're talking to them one-on-one, you're talking to them about their needs and their interests. And then it really opens up the direct marketing channel. And that is where you then got great interplay between what I coined kind of your pay-as-you-go media strategy versus your direct relationship building one-on-one, where you get to know someone over time and you honestly then start personalizing that relationship and actually even changing the communication message to suit the individual. And this is truly where we see adoptions of CDPs, which is our central customer data platforms, truly becoming important for global companies. It's quite funny. It's a lot of the service-based industries like automotive and business-to-business relationships that have required CRM systems for a long time. And it's quite interesting to see a lot of those thinking of building relationships now moving into a consumer product goods space, and how that is then truly implemented within industries. So about the next 5 years, what can we anticipate happening then within data-driven marketing if it's rising in importance? We're going to find more need for people to do cord cutting. Isn't it quite ironic that today we even have apps like Calm to tell you to be calm and switch off and use less apps? And I think it actually speaks into that consumer behavior of cord cutting truly coming to the fore, and people almost want a little bit of more privacy. They don't want to be always on with their cell phone available. And how does that then impact how we can reach them? In a world where privacy policies are coming to the fore, you need to be quite sensitive when you do communicate with someone, because as we all know, in a personal relationship, especially a romantic relationship, when it's new, someone can very easily come off as a creep. And you truly do not want to come off as a creep in the situation. And you need to think about how do you respect people's privacies, and in a world where TV is not necessarily the go-to medium, and how do you reach them then on like the Netflixes and the other streaming services that we also are seeing rising. And truly what is then becoming more important, how do you measure the impact of all of this? Because at the end of the day, if you believe as a business you're building one-on-one relationships with people, how do you put in relationship measurement metrics into your measurement models to consistently look at things in the same way over time, to truly trend it, but to also optimize your results? So I don't know if there's any questions. Please feel free to ask it at this point, or I'm just going to continue into a little bit more of how I see this being implemented in a consumer experience strategy overarching to drive experience. Perfect. I'm going to continue then. Just if you go look at what this means for experience. And what is quite interesting is if you look at out of America, where some great direct-to-consumer companies have risen, as well as locally, where the direct-to-consumer model of trying to deliver directly to people's houses, I think probably the most successful company that consistently offered this as a subscription service in South Africa must be YouCook, where you get your food delivered and it's kind of a weekly subscription service. And out of the US, we've got an interesting brand called Dollar Shave Club, which was actually acquired by Unilever, where they delivered your shaving gear to your house for however often you shave. And they really went and personalized your experience. But what they do is they get to know the consumer in a data-driven way upfront. They make you complete a little questionnaire about how often do you shave, how do you shave, what aftercare products do you use, do you have sensitive skin or not, do you have allergic reactions? And they truly ask you a lot of questions up front to personalize your offer. And that is truly where direct-to-consumer found power. And in South Africa, another great example is Yappie Chef. As we all know, they started as this online direct-to-consumer store, and they built their name from that point of view. But they had to change their business model for growth and go into brick and mortar. And I think it's quite interesting to see the direct-to-consumer brands moving into brick and mortar, and other big box stores that have really owned the market for a long time going like, oh, but we need to retract that space. And I think that's truly a good example of why you need both and where you need to balance both. But all of this truly just illustrate where direct-to-consumer is rather becoming a business model, and is no longer like a retail business model, but actually a model to approach the client. How do you actually develop that one-on-one relationship and get to know them from the get-go, and not just kind of try and market a product to them and speaking to them, but rather speaking with them in a way that is actually deeply, deeply personalized. So then to go a little bit deeper, then how do you go and develop this connection? And how do you actually start this journey across your business from the front of acquiring new clients, as well as just retaining new clients and data records? So what this slide truly shows is just an easy map where you go and you make a use case in your business for a consumer to easily share the data with you. So let me grab an example. Let's say you are an accessible cosmetics brand and you kind of want to sell lipsticks and foundation and so forth. How in that acquire phase, when someone purchases their first product, do you make sure you understand what tone of foundation does this consumer need? What color lipstick preferences do they have? So yes, they come to your website, they tell you they're interested to receive the latest, greatest makeup tips in the acquiring phase. They give you a bit of personal information in the sense of cell phone number, email address, and first name. And there you go. You've acquired a new data record. So you can start a relationship from a business perspective. But then perhaps you introduce a little onboarding phase where you share with them an email that goes like, if you complete this questionnaire today, we're willing to give you 10% off on your first purchase. Just share with us some more information about your makeup preferences so that we can personalize your experience. And you link that to a very simple form where you then also collect that data into your central data platform. And that data you collect then immediately allows you to actually engage better with this consumer through product recommendations, like I illustrated earlier, with foundation and lipstick choices, as well as just what type of looks are they interested in the future? Are they the girls that like to wear a natural look, or do they want to look more fashion forward? How do you truly then personalize how you engage with them and other touch points in the future? And also then, because you know this record, they sometimes purchase from your online store, you might have a brick and mortar presence as well. How do you link all of this data to the consistent record would be through your central data platform, which would also then enable you to retain people longer because you can nurture them a little bit more. You can know how often they purchase. You might even get into a rhythm of like, I know someone comes for a new bottle of foundation every 3 months. So it's a good cue for them to every 3 months remind them, give them a little bit of incentive to stay in your world. And you might even find that, ooh, I've actually lost a consumer because for the last 3 years, they did come quarterly for their makeup top up, but now all of a sudden they haven't come for 6 months. What's up? How can I try and kind of nurture this consumer either back to their current brand, or if you're within a portfolio of brands, how do you nurture them back into perhaps another brand where the profit and sales still lies within your business? Then clearly, to enable these kind of experiences in a world that is the same as it was yesterday, just much more digitally enabled, how do we need platforms to truly get us into these experiences? So it was quite interesting during the pandemic. I think Adidas did one of the most phenomenal jobs where they took the app they had and all of a sudden launched a lot of content for how do you exercise at home? Because as we all know, we couldn't go to gyms, and those of us that are truly fitness fundies and really take that healthy lifestyle extremely serious, want to continue this train of exercising. And they took this database they already had of people that have downloaded their app and are kind of subscribed into their world to give them content around this. And that is where they truly made sure they deliver purpose-driven connections to consumers. They showed, I understand you on a very, very human level. And I think that's where the truly richness lies, in where data can empower you to easily reach consumers that are interested in your product in a way that is relevant to them. Adidas even went a little bit further, and they gave a little bit of personalized perks in the way that we all know the Vitality program. If you do your kind of set exercises for the moment, you'll kind of get a perk or a stage, and they truly just kind of gamified that experience to keep their loyal customers deeply, deeply engaged. And it was just great how they adapted this for emerging trends. And this has then become a CX data asset in your world, which enables you to quickly react to trends and things happening around the world, because people want to stay connected. And I think, even like I mentioned at the beginning, just human connection at this point in time is vital for all of us. It's a basic human need. And I would have loved to present this in person, because then we could have engaged a lot more intimately around it. But at least with data and platforms, we get a semblance of that. And that is vital for ourselves as humans. So then, hello to the future a little bit that last year brought us. I think we've all seen the amazing Amazon Go examples worldwide about where you shop with a QR code and you walk out of the store, and it's a great integration of digital at the store, at the brick and mortar store, and not necessarily seeing the two as a separate. And in South Africa, we also saw the acquisition of Bottles by Pick n Pay to truly get a quick fix into having that delivery arm that can like service on a very short term cold fulfillment. That's also something that's very important for us from an alcoholic beverages space, is to make sure if you are buying for that last mile service of, oh, I'm at a party and I finished my alcohol, I want a quick top up. Those are the kind of last mile services that came up. And I also just find Checkers and the ShopRite group actually as a whole over the last 3-4 years have truly gone and developed this infrastructure from a resource perspective, not just to develop apps, but also human resources to truly transform their business. And I think the best example of that is 60/60. As we all know, we can, if you quickly want to get some food delivered to your house at an affordable price point, that's truly my go-to app. And I think a lot of a lot of brands are trying now, and the retailers are trying to emulate that. But Checkers have done a great run up to prepare themselves for that, and that just gave them the opportunity to truly put some fuel on that flame when they could in that moment of COVID. And kind of that example of Adidas that I've discussed is like truly great from a brand building, personal relationship building perspective. And another interesting case study is Nike with their Runtastic app, where you can actually scan your foot using the camera on your phone, and they tell you which size and which of their ranges would you actually need to buy. And they even utilize that in store if they need to fit a shoe to a client. And I just think that's a great use of digital to empower the consumer experience. In store, out of the store, and just that consistent line of digital is everywhere. It's not a function you can kind of go prop into a little corner of a business. It's rather part of the whole business, is the message there for me. Then moving on, what does this truly mean for businesses from a complete transformation, new world perspective? And I think that is where you have to take true stock of where the company you are working for is at today, and what is the next steps to take, and on what level it is. But really the time to act is now, as I kind of shown up front. And last month, BMW, even in their annual shareholder meetings, talked a lot about their own digital transformation, and they showed a triple digits million number of euros that they're planning to invest annually up to 2025 to literally transform their whole business. And it's quite interesting to see a global producer of automotives putting such a stand in the market of even being confident to share it with shareholders, because it's going to create shareholder value for them in the long term. And where are they actually going to spend all of this money? And it was quite interesting to see customers will have options of buying customized vehicles. They're truly gunning that moment of like, I want to give you, even on a product level, a very, very personalized product, not just a personalized experience. So really services of like fine-tuning that to the greatest details. And yes, we've known that this was offered in like the very high-end luxury commercial market, where I would pitch BMW and a lot of spaces as a little bit more accessible luxury than truly the upper echelons of the industry. But bringing that kind of commercialization model of customization to this level of the market is game changing, as well as digital after sale upgrades to truly make sure they sell more products in aftermarket, because there's also a case like, if you are the adventurer that goes cycling over the weekend, how do I sell you the right kind of bicycle rack for your vehicle, and so forth, or other types of add-ons if you have children. And it's quite interesting, they're even bringing that after sales element into the equation of how they want to manage consumer experience, but they still very sensitively want to give customers the option to manage how their data is used. So the fourth point I actually want to labor a bit. So I'm part of a global in-house agency called Draftline. So Anheuser-Busch InBev started this globally about 2-3 years ago to really be able to get closer to data-driven creativity, but also how you leverage that data back into marketing. And it's quite interesting to see BMW going the same way with something they're coining the Markham engine, to really make sure those marketing communication is really personalized from a data-driven level from the get-go, and not informed by a third-party agency, but rather by in-house partners sitting alongside the brand managers in a single unit from the get-go. And they even went as far as to say the two first vehicles where we need to look out for all of these new innovations coming out is with the launch of the BMW iX and BMW i4. So I'm ecstatic to see what all of this looks like in practice. but like the example I showed earlier about retailers, fashion retailers and returns, sustainability is key. There's no premium without sustainability that can truly be charged in the future, because we are in a world where we know as humans, we need to look after our natural assets. We can't just deplete them and leave nothing for the future generations. And I just found this so interesting that this is being said on C-suite boardroom level, because it truly just makes the case for consumer experience management consistently across the business, right from acquiring a customer, right through aftermarket services, and even beyond. And then I think it's quite daunting to look at all of this, because then it's like, how does my business start? What I think that the concepts of a CDP is also quite new to the world. And it's a lot of multinationals still grappling with how to actually get the best out of this data assets they've started collecting. And it's great to see McKinsey did this phenomenal framework, which is really just about grow foundations. Go into all of this with a venture capitalist mindset. Not all of us have the luxury of the funds that a Jeff Bezos have to build a mammoth like Amazon. Some of us just need to start with focusing on aggressive growth opportunities within the business today, and truly make sure we put mechanics in place to incentivize this for people to get involved with it, but also just making sure you get your HR performance management metrics behind that. But it's truly also about using the assets you have in the business today already with small cross-functional teams to set up of how can you bring that startup mentality to some of the issues faced by the business today, which can complement current operations and change it slightly to set it up in a more streamlined manner for future success. And that is truly get that cross-functional, get the marketer, get the sales person, get the operations person involved, because they all come with insights of all of their specialities, but they also have a lot to share of how does this actually impact in a digital world. My mind goes back to that example I made up front about returns and operations and your logistics person. We also have returns in stores. We also have returns in brick and mortar stores. So it's relooking these kind of little elements. And then there from a data and marketing tech, it's making sure you do have that marketing stack in place where you do centralize all the client data you have available into one golden record for a client, so that you have that single view, so that you can actually enable that single conversation in digital marketing channels and using your technology. And really to build that microservice architecture. I think the most interesting change from a marketing perspective is that the moment I communicate a message to someone will be completely different for the various people within journeys in my business. It's no longer a case of, if I want to sell more product, I'm going to have one marketing campaign for the period of the second week of Feb to the fourth week of Feb. It's rather thinking I'm taking people that have entered my marketing world at different times on the same journey, but at different times. And you can even then, by the data enablement of kind of that onboarding journey that I also discussed from a cosmetics perspective, you can actually take people down different journey routes because their interactions back with the business would be different. And there you're already actually activating that data and marketing tech into personalized communication points. And then to data translators, you truly need to start thinking across the business of something that I've been playing in my mind as I kind of coin it journeylytics, where you need to take this traditional way of looking at your analytics and rather putting it into journey stories, consumer journey stories, and alongside that, actually measure the rates and your data from that perspective, because that immediately tells you where's the current journey having a massive drop-off rate? And then you can ask yourself the question, what can I change in that moment in the journey to have less drop-off rates? Do I need to implement another step? Is it actually as simple as changing the creative or even the product offering to make sure you get that cross-functional alignment across the teams to really be nimble and make the change? But all of this being said, it's quite easy to go like, let's go transform the whole business today and run. It's a new world, it's a new dawn, COVID came, everything changed. And I think that would be actually a little bit of a digital immature way of looking at the world, because we all still need to do due diligence. Because moving fast is critical, yes, but you also have to do your homework and make sure this change to a consumer experience focus across acquiring and retaining still add business value. Because at the end of the day, consumer experience do need to not just add value to the consumer, but also to the business at large. So thank you so much for your time and listening to my thoughts around this. So this is everything that I have from a structured conversation to share today.